Hello, ladies.
Hey guys, my name is James Walsh, and you are listening to the Wrestling Epicenter here on YouTube. I want to thank you for finding us. Please do me a favor and click that subscribe button and the notifications bell. And if you get the chance on this video, click the like button. If you do, it'll turn blue. Check it out. Also, check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all this great content available in MP3 format, our online store that'll keep us going free and clear, daily news updates, as well as all the information from the history of professional wrestling you could possibly ever want. Check out WrestlingEpicenter.com online right now. Without any delay, let's get to your interview here on the Wrestling Epicenter.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this moment you've all been waiting for. Joining us on the Newsmaker line right now is one and only Sean Morley, Val Venis. Sean, it's great to have you on the program.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
All righty. Well, we're here with a lot of the usual suspects here on the interactive interview, but let's get right down to it. How you doing, and what have you been up to lately?
I've been doing pretty good. I've been taking my time healing up my shoulder. I had some major shoulder surgery there a little more than a year ago, and that pretty much sidelined me for a good 8 months before I could even touch a weight. And so that has been coming along fairly well. I was released by the doctor back in March, and I did one tour to Japan last March, and I just finished my second tour, and I guess I'm getting ready to go back over in September.
So you're heading back over to Japan, and you guys, I think it's you and A-Train heading on over there regularly from the Arizona area, right?
Absolutely, yes. A-Train's been a mainstay over there for the last several years. So
absolutely. One of the greatest tag teams that we've seen in many years with him and Tomko for a while.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to be talking to you. Now, how does your style, I know you have a hell of a wrestling style, and I mean, nobody denies that. How does your style relate to over there in the Japanese crowds?
You know, it actually relates real well. I spent some time in Japan back in 1996 for the All Japan Pro Wrestling Company, and that is really where I think I fine-tuned my craft. I mean, I spent a year in England, 6 years in Puerto Rico. I spent a year and 8 months in Mexico, and it basically reinforced all the basics, plus learned all the high spots and psychology within those promotions. But it wasn't until I got to Japan in 1996 that everything really started to come together for me just in time for when I signed with WWE.
Now, that brings up a good question that me and Patrick were talking about off the air, is that we've, seen some of your early stuff on film and on DVD and things of that nature, and we've tried to, we're kind of the show that kind of watches everything. Anything that has to do with wrestling, we'll sit and watch. So we know a lot about a lot of things that a lot of the mainstream fans maybe haven't seen. When you made it to the WWE, I think a lot of people might have been surprised. I know you did some cocky gimmicks before, but maybe the Val Venis thing might have been a little bit more over the top than anything we had seen you do before. How did you like when they proposed that idea to you?
It they didn't have to twist my arm too hard, I can tell you that much. I was actually in Mexico City at the time, and I remember it as clear as a bell. It was about 7 a.m. Mexico City time, and the hotel phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's Vince McMahon, and he says, Sean, we got this character. We'd like to see if you may feel comfortable playing this character. And I said, okay, throw it on me. And he says, okay, the character's name is Val Venis, and his last name is spelled V-E-N-I-S, which kind of caught me off guard. I was like, okay, Val Venis, all right, that sounds kind of cool. And then he says, now, Val Venis was a former film star. Now, the first thing that pops into my head is Jesse Ventura, Hollywood-type guy, and so that's my first inclination as to where this character is going. And then he stops and he pauses for a few seconds and he says, Val Venis is actually a former adult film star. Well, now my idea of the Val Venis character has completely changed. And I mean, as soon as he says, the Val Venis character is a former adult film star turned pro wrestler, it's like, yeah, okay, twist my arm a little more.
Wow. So,
well, one thing I wanted to ask you about the character was that once again, James and I talked about it off the air. It seemed like it was almost like the Attitude Era's version of Rick Rude, but how much control did you have over the direction of the character?
Actually, quite a bit. You know, when Vince McMahon first proposed the character to me, that's basically all he gave me in terms of what the character was about. His name was Val Venis. His last name was spelled Venis, and he was a former adult film star turned pro wrestler. And so the towel thing, the hello ladies thing, the double-minded jokes all came about as I was performing. And so, you know, for example, the hello ladies thing actually arose when I was flown up to Connecticut to the television studios, and we were doing the vignettes that over a period of weeks we're going to introduce the Val Venis character to the fans. And for the first vignette, we didn't even mention hello ladies. It wasn't until the second vignette when I just felt like there needed to be some kind of opening for that one vignette. I wasn't thinking of, you know, as a tagline or anything like that. I was just thinking of, you know, something that would open up this one vignette, because the way it was written, it was kind of weird going into it, like, you know, starting it off. So I said, before I mention this first line, can I just say, hello, ladies? And so the writer said, yeah, throw that in there. And so I said, hello, ladies, and then I went into the vignette. And then when we watched it back, I was like, hello, ladies is kind of a cool tagline that we could really do a lot with. And so I just started saying that at the beginning of every vignette, and then I started going to the ring, and I started saying it, you know, when I go to the ring before I do my joke. And so, you know, everything was developed over time. But the original character that was thrown at me was, his name's Val Venis, and he's an adult film star, a former adult film star.
So it's kind of like, this is your idea, go.
Yeah, you know, you know, obviously, like the character itself was created by Vince McMahon, but all the intricates were created by myself.
Excellent, excellent. Now, one of the things that you just mentioned was the catchphrase, the hello ladies, and I mean, when you look for Val Venis online, what you'll find is wallpapers with hello ladies written over it and your picture and things of that nature. So obviously, it really caught on, and I mean, it was a very popular thing. And at that time, at the Attitude Era, you had The Rock cutting promos, which virtually were sing-alongs with The Rock,
right?
With the catchphrases, and your catchphrase is very popular. Obviously, Steve Austin making a very annoying one with the what. I hate that one.
Yes, I got to agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So, do you think that maybe that's something that might be missing in the business today? Obviously, not so much in Japan, but when you watch the WWE, is that there's not as many catchphrases, or not so much that people are waiting. You know, when Scott Hall came to the ring, they're waiting for "Hey yo." When you came to the ring, they're waiting for "Hello, ladies."
Yeah, you know, I think WWE is missing that. It just seems different in terms of content today, and I don't know whether it is the going PG has anything to do with that or not, but it definitely has a different feel compared to the Attitude Era, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Sean, I had a question for you, and I was always massively confused about this portion of your career. I believe it was in around October '99. You were at that point finally given a really big push. I mean, you got the Intercontinental title. They'd push you as a pretty big star. But at this point, I believe there was a SmackDown where you wrestled Rock. There was a SmackDown where you wrestled Austin. There was a SmackDown where they were putting you in there with top stars. You were feuding with Mankind going in there. It looked like you were on the cusp of getting to that elite level there, and I was like, you know, you're 6'4", you're in or 6'5", whatever, in really good shape, very over, and then magically it just stopped a month later. Can you tell me the mindset behind the lack of push after October '99 and what happened there?
To tell you the truth, nothing was ever directly said to me as to why it was pulled out from underneath me. Now, I've heard lots of different stories. Part of one of the stories was we were changing networks, and the networks wanted some characters toned down. Godfather and Val Venis were two main characters they wanted toned way down. I've heard other stories that they just wanted to slowly move into a more family-friendly direction. Of course, they had the PTC all over them at the time, and I remember having a discussion with Vince where he was quite concerned with the amount of influence the PTC was having over advertisers at the time. And so Vince created the RTC, which, of course, taking two of the most over-the-top envelope-pushing characters, being the Godfather and myself, and converting them completely and making them part of the RTC, taking shots back at the PTC at the time is something that I think everything combined really attributed to toning the Val Venis character down. And of course, if they don't really understand how to tone the Val Venis character down, then, well, let's just keep him off TV for a little while. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And of course, one thing to another, and then I fell into a position where I was working for several years with a lot of the younger guys that were coming up. And, I remember Hunter one time telling me, hey, if this guy can work with Val at the house shows, for X number of weeks and everything's good, then we'll bring him on TV so he can work with us. You know what I mean? So I was kind of put in that position of working with the younger guys, giving the yay or nay for them. And once I was in that position, it just seemed like I was in a rut, and I never got out of that position. It wasn't I had a problem working with the younger guys. I loved working with the younger guys. It was still the burning desire deep inside to really want to do something storyline-wise, career-wise. And so that's something that burns a little bit. Of course, business is business, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, no, and I don't think anyone's going to say that there's anything wrong with that position because, like, if you're working on a Hollywood movie, if you're not the leading role, I mean, you're still an integral part of the film. I mean, it's a different thing. I just felt that maybe, and I think a lot of people felt if they wanted to tone the character down, why not just do what they did with somebody like Triple H, who's a huge star now? It's like, strip away the aristocratic gimmick and just let him be a guy who beats people's ass. I didn't feel it was really that much of a stretch to have them say, just tone down that aspect and still have you being a guy that's trading blows with the top guys. I was always personally really pissed off about that lack of push there. So I mean,
it's something that kind of got under my skin as well. But like I said, I was happy with the position I was in working with the younger guys, and I kind of felt content with that position. But still, you still have deep inside that burning desire to really want to explode and make an impact,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
At the events, though, when that "Hello Ladies" hit, just like the theme song we played when we introduced you, the crowd came to their feet. The crowd was never not interested in your gimmick, in your character. They were never disinterested in Val Venis, even when they had you coming in to do things to enhance the storylines with Kane and such. When they brought you out, it wasn't a "oh, I remember him" kind of thing. It was a "all right, he's back, let's see what he can do" kind of thing.
Right, absolutely. I think the character really resonated with the fans, and that made it a lot of fun to work the Val Venis character because of the connection that the fans had with the character. So I think more than anything, the connection with the fans is really what I guess you could say the connection with the fans is really what made me content in the position of working with the younger guys. I mean, it would have been different if I was working with the younger guys, helping the younger guys come up, and the fans were just crapping on the character. Things might have been, it would have been a lot harder to take. But the fact that the character was still so over, no matter what I was doing in that ring, whether I was enhancing a younger guy or, whether I was being pushed, the fact that I could feel the connection with the fans really made it enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, one of the most interesting aspects of the character, I thought, was that, and this was kind of a sign of the Attitude Era, was even though Val Venis was an adult film star and, he had interesting relationships with his opponent's wives and sisters and such, he was usually the babyface. How did you feel about playing that kind of character as a babyface?
Well, the Val Venis character was originally supposed to be a heel, and it was supposed to be a split heel, so to speak. I was supposed to be. The way we had it planned out was that the women would love the Val Venis character, and of course the guys were supposed to hate the Val Venis character. And when I first came out, the women went absolutely berserk, obviously for obvious reasons. the guys went nuts as well. And it was kind of a weird feeling because that was not what we were expecting. Of course, when the guys were going crazy over the character as well, we obviously went in that direction with it as Val Venis being a babyface.
Well, I mean, the how can you not, as a guy, not laugh at I'm like a Rubik's Cube. The longer you play, the harder it gets. I mean, that stuff is gold. It was just like those segments. I know I was in high school at the time, I remember, and my friends and I were ready for the next Val Venis double entendre, and it was good. And once again, not sure why they didn't keep going all the way with it, but I mean, I know everybody on the show enjoyed every one of those interview segments.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I enjoyed performing them. It was, like I said, the connection the character has with the fans is unbelievable, and it just makes the character so much more enjoyable to work with and to perform every night.
Now, a few years ago, Ric Flair made a comment on Raw, and when he was on Raw, he made a sexual joke that was a little bit over the top, and it made me want to ask you: have you ever made a comment on Raw or SmackDown or any of the WWE programs that when you walked through the curtain, Vince was blushing or really ticked off and wanted to have your head for? Because Flair made a bleeding virgins comment, and apparently Vince didn't like that too much.
Yeah, you know, I never had that issue. Everything, you know, every joke that we ever came up with was always double-checked, so to speak. But, yeah, I never really had that issue. Now, back then, however, the envelope was being pushed much further than it is today. And if Flair said that type of thing just a few years ago, that's at a time when WWE is trying to move more PG-like. And so I could see Vince becoming upset with a comment like that as he's trying to move the company towards a more family-friendly entertainment. I guess you could say. Do you know what I mean? He's trying to move more towards PG, and I think a lot of that has to do because it's not a privately owned or a fully privately owned company anymore. He does have stockholders he needs to appease, and I think that's a big part of wanting to move the company more PG. But so I could definitely see, you know, Flair getting chewed out for making a statement like that.
Now,
Sean,
that brings up a good question about the PG move, because obviously your character was one of the more out there characters of the Attitude Era, and you know was one of the ones that they finger pointed when they did have trouble with sponsors. Now that they are going in a PG direction, what is your honest opinion of it? And this might even get a little bit into your political views and things of that nature as well.
You know, to me, it's as long as government's not involved in pushing WWE towards PG, then you know they're a free enterprise. They should be able to do what they want, whatever they feel is best for them. Personally, I enjoyed the era where the envelope was being pushed every night, and I think a lot of wrestling fans enjoyed that as well. As far as moving towards PG, I would like to compare the ratings as of today compared to the Attitude Era. Now, mind you, back in the Attitude Era, there was major competition. I mean, WCW was defeating WWE in ratings for, I believe it was 80-some-odd weeks in a row.
86.
So the competition there forced WWE to push the envelope as well. Without that type of competition, you basically have stockholders and you have advertisers controlling the direction of where they feel creative should move the company, and obviously that is towards more of a family-friendly business model.
But at the same time, and I completely agree, and recently WWE announced they got Pepsi for SummerSlam, so I guess kudos on that for getting such a big sponsor. But at the same time, in the Attitude Era, and obviously I think the raunchiness and that kind of stuff had a lot to do with it, but it also, the storylines weren't dumbed down. They were more complex. They were a lot more intelligent, mature, and I don't mean the sense of mature as in an adult film star. I mean it mature as in more adult audiences having their intelligence challenged. Now it seems more dumbed down. Do you think that TV PG necessarily means that we have to appeal to the lowest common denominator?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. As far as why they would want to be going towards that direction that's beyond me. I enjoyed the Attitude Era. I enjoyed, having or being part of the envelope pushing every night. I would definitely have to agree with you on that they're focusing on the lowest common denominator, and they're trying to pull in bigger advertisers. And I think, I think a lot of it might have to do with the events in September 2001 as well. I think that scarred America, and I think that was kind of the beginning of where everything started to tone down. And so, I definitely think that moving towards PG has a lot to do with not having major competition and the sponsors and the stockholders wanting to appeal to the lowest common denominator for sure. Whereas if there was major competition, you're just looking for the maximum amount of ratings you can possibly acquire. And of course, you're going to do that by pushing the envelope, by being shocking, and by being very, very entertaining.
Now, I wanted to throw this at you because it actually was something that I had my problems or my qualms, my pros and cons towards the Attitude Era, and most of them have been discussed here. The pros of it was that it was well-written TV. The cons that I had with it was that sometimes it made me cringe, just thinking, oh my God, there's probably a 10-year-old out there who just had his job, is about to have his first wet dream after watching this show tonight. But that was kind of my qualms with the Attitude Era. Now, when you watch it now, though, I don't think, going back to what we just said, I don't think you need to dumb it down. And Eric made this point last week. Little Nemo was not...
Nemo.
Little Nemo, yeah, that big Nemo.
No, Finding Nemo. Little Nemo is a cartoon movie from '92.
Oh, wow, I'm confused. Sorry about that. You have been corrected. So Finding Nemo was a good movie, but it didn't have any sexual content or any kind of foul language. I think that you could do both. I mean, if you look at the rock and wrestling era, while it was very much kid-friendly, there were still some pretty decent storylines going on there.
Oh, absolutely. I could see, they have 3 different shows right now. They have ECW, SmackDown, and Raw, and I can definitely, to me, it's beyond me why they do not have at least one show that just constantly pushes the envelope. For example, an ECW would be a perfect arena for that. That said, I guess we have to go back to corporate control, what the sponsorships are looking for, what the stockholders are looking for, because when you are living and working in an environment without much competition, there really isn't much else to drive the direction creatively other than the big business sponsorships and stockholders and whatnot.
Now, when you watch TNA wrestling right now, what do you see? Do you see the kind of rebellion company that could, at some point, force Vince to really get ignited and willing to compete again, or do you just see another wrestling show?
That's a good question. I see another wrestling show, but I also tend to think that they're trying very, very hard to create entertaining TV. And, they got some great performers there, to me, it's just, I pray that they can step up to the plate and force Vince McMahon to really stand back up like he did during the WCW versus WWF at the time, during those days. Because, regardless of what Vince McMahon may say publicly or, to his, to people who are close to him that, he won the battle between WCW and WWE and, all is good now. I think deep down, Vince is a very competitive person. And regardless of what he may think of TNA, I think deep down he would love TNA to step up the plate and challenge him, like WCW challenged him. And I think that's just in Vince's demeanor. I think Vince is a very competitive person, and I don't believe deep down he's content with being, the number one company in the world right now. I think he would love to see a TNA or a different organization step up to the plate and force him to prove that he is, the dominant wrestling company in the world today.
Now, obvious question, have you ever inquired or thought about going to TNA?
No, I've never once thought about it, to tell you the truth. No, that's not to say that I would never go, but right now, I'm just trying to get back into shape, get my shoulder fully 100% again. I'm happy with, doing Japan and doing a few independents here and there right now. And, never say never. If the right offer came around, I'd definitely jump over to TNA. But it's kind of a loyal thing, too. I've always... I was with WWE for 10 years, and, they were really good to me, and so there's a loyal aspect to it as well. And, that's just something I've always been throughout my career, is fairly loyal to the companies I work for.
Now, I want to pick your brain for a second here, because we discussed this briefly, and you mentioned September 11th, 2001, and that maybe that was the beginning of the change in the WWE, and I think possibly in the whole country, because for a while there, it seemed like we lost our sense of humor, because there was no sitcoms following that. I mean, there was nothing funny, there was nothing going on. It was all kind of all seriousness. Do you think that it was a change in wrestling when that happened, or was it an overall change in both society? And why do you think that, is that what you're saying, that maybe society changed and that's why they stopped pushing the envelope?
I think society was pressured by 9/11, but I also think that the environment without competition, an environment without somebody pushing Vince, was also an integral part of the era where the envelope was being pushed no longer being there. And I definitely think that companies tried to become more family-friendly. They tried to be more pure. They tried to be more, PG all around. I mean, I think a lot of different entertainment companies were doing that. Now, I start to see a little bit in Hollywood now where they're starting to push the envelope on certain aspects now, a little bit here and there. So things may be slowly going back to normal. But, yeah, I think in the wrestling world, I think 9/11 was an integral part of going PG. And I also think that the environment change where there was no longer any competition for WWE, I think that was definitely an integral part of the change.
2001 was just a bad year all around, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, if we had some major competition right now, let's say TNA stepped up to the plate and they really started destroying WWE in the ratings, you think WWE is going to stay PG for very long? Not a chance. They're going to try everything they possibly can to bump up the ratings and take the lead. And, of course, if that means scrapping the PG label and pushing the envelope again, they will do that. And so I think it's competition that makes everything better.
I think that's certainly part
if you look at their ratings right now, they're doing like 1997, 1996, around that, a little bit higher ratings. But, of course, there's no WCW to take the other half of the audience. So they're doing what they were doing in the pre-Attitude Era without having any competition. I mean, 3.6 might be great for a normal cable program, but knowing what they're capable of, it's not really good when considering you guys were getting like 7s and 8s at one point. And, I mean, if you look at TNA, their ratings don't fluctuate. They stay constant or they will go up. I hardly ever see them go down. So I think it's a matter of time. They're just building that audience.
Yeah, I really do hope that TNA can really step up to the plate and challenge Vince. And I think that'll just be good for the wrestling industry all around,
And one of the things that WWE gave you the opportunity to do was to explore your political views. And yourself and Kane are both libertarians. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely.
And, they sent you guys out to the conventions and things of that nature. That had to be a great experience to experience politics, both representing the WWE as well as to really get a chance to see everything so up close.
I'd have to disagree with you on that because I'm truly not a big fan of politics at all.
Really?
I'm a big fan of true freedom and liberty, and it's politics that stands in the way of true freedom and liberty, and that's why I despise politics. So when people say, you're big into politics, the reality is I'm involved in politics. Despise it because it's politics that gets in the way of true freedom and liberty, and trying to trim government down drastically, trying to cut programs, trying to help educate other people. to what true freedom and liberty really mean is a big goal of mine right now. And, I just see an ever-growing government that's, they're creating a society that's built on a house of cards and is going to collapse sooner rather than later.
I mean, yeah.
So does that mean you hate Triple H?
Do I hate Triple H? No, absolutely not. Actually, Triple H is a really good guy. Contrary to popular belief, he is actually he's very, very businesslike. He's very dedicated. He's very, very passionate about the business. And, that's definitely one thing I admire about the guy. He's just got an unbelievable amount of passion for the business. And you can't help but admire that.
Now, you mentioned your political views and you're trying to educate people, and I believe you have a blog online. Is that correct?
I most certainly do. It's freetarian.com.
I'm sorry, we had a little scratch on the line. What was it again?
It's freetarian.com, and it's basically all your liberty-robbing news. Whenever I get some time, I'll search online and search some sources online for stories where liberty is being eroded. And I'll post those stories on the blog. Now, a lot of those stories come from another website called freedomsphoenix.com, which is run by a friend of mine, Ernest Hancock, who also does a radio show out of the Activist Center downtown Phoenix as well. And so, there's a big liberty movement right here in Phoenix, Arizona. We have camerafraud.com, which is run by a guy that has a YouTube page called 4409, and he just does some incredible videos where he confronts the state on video and really shines a light on the evils of the state. And so he does some great work. He does some amazing videos, and it's definitely some guy that I'm looking forward to working with here in the near future.
Now, I wanted to bounce this quote off of you. It's a quote from Jesse Ventura from last year. And I wanted to get your take on it. He said on this show, and he proceeded after saying it on this show, I don't know if he coined it on this show or not, but he said it on several shows. He said on the McCain versus Obama election, he wanted there to be a third choice called none of the above. And he says that he would swear that 70% of the people would vote none of the above. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes. Now, as far as 70% of the people voting none of the above, no, I can't agree with that. I would definitely agree that I would like to see a third choice saying none of the above. But as far as him believing that 70% of the people would vote none of the above, I would have to disagree with that big time. Part of the reason is because of the power of government indoctrination. And obviously that's performed through government-controlled public educational system, a government-licensed media, and, of course, parents who have been heavily indoctrinated. So you have a lot of people that were in full support of Barack Obama, regardless of how oppressive, his regime may be. But there's just we saw on the news night after night of people saying, oh, Barack Obama's going to pay my mortgage and my car, and I'm not going to have anything to worry about ever again. I mean, people loved this guy. He has, it's not him indoctrinating people, of course. It's the regime, the government regime that has been for decades just indoctrinating people and dumbing them down and making them believe that, government is the end-all and be-all. I mean, just a few nights ago on MSNBC, we had a host on MSNBC saying that everybody that's weary of government or that doesn't trust government is insane. The Founding Fathers, they demanded that we never trust government. So the Founding Fathers insane? I mean, that's just an example of mainstream media, which is government licensed, dumbing down Americans. So you have the majority of people now saying, if you hear anyone that is talking about distrusting government or distrusting certain programs, then, you can just shrug them off as being insane, and they're just, part of that fringe insane lunatic side of society. But the reality is, if you love true freedom and liberty, you are commanded, literally commanded, just because of the true love and freedom for liberty and freedom, you're commanded to distrust politicians. You're commanded to distrust government as a whole. And it's sad. It's so sad to see the sheeple just believing everything they hear from mainstream media and the public educational system.
And it's not a case of Republican and Democrat. It really is not, because if one or the other actually did what they say that they believe in, it might not be so bad, but they don't. They're both basically the same.
Well, I would agree with that statement if you went back maybe 10, 20 years. But today, you have the politicians, back 10 to 20 years ago, and beyond that, you had politicians consistently getting elected on a platform of smaller government. The era of big government is over. So, yeah, they were talking a good game. But the reality is when they get into power, they would grow government. Well, now, and I'm going to say it's the last two administrations, the Bush administration, well, even the last three, going back to Clinton, we're seeing these politicians now basically telling us right to our face that they want to grow government. And people are like jumping up and down saying, yeah, let's do it. You got Barack Obama blatantly putting forth a program that will literally take over the healthcare system. Now, of course, he is that's obviously a government option, which
right.
is what's going to happen is the government's going to expand. And so now you have politicians saying that they are going to grow government. So even if they even if they do what they say they're going to do, they're just going to grow government because that's what they say they're going to do. And it's a lot different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it's sad. It's sad to watch the house of cards starting to crumble.
It really is. And truthfully, I'm going to throw this quote at you, and he's not exactly somebody that I would quote for politics ever. But at the same time that I was ranting and raving at everybody, I don't care who you're going to vote for, but at least think before you go vote in November. A lead singer of one of my favorite bands, his name is Blackie Lawless. He made a post on his website saying, "Look, I'm not a conservative and I'm not a liberal, but I want to make this clear. If you're going to vote for Obama, at least look at what he stands for, please." And he says, and then he closed it out with this line, and I'll never forget it. He said, "I love my country, and I would die for my country, but I am scared to death of its government."
Absolutely. And I think anybody that understands what is coming down the pipe, if Obama gets everything he wants pushed through, you have no other choice but to fear heavily for this country, because it really is a house of cards that is about to collapse. It really is. And people do not believe. I mean, we've grown up generations, over 230 some odd years now, with a silver spoon in our mouths. And so to say that, you go around to the average American and you say, the country's going to cease to exist as a sovereign nation. The American dollar will cease to exist. It'll become worthless. They'll look at you and think you're crazy. But history has told us time and time again that every empire lasts between 200 and 300 years. They all go through the same stages. America's no different. We're going through the exact same stages that 60 some odd empires before us have gone through. The Roman Empire, the Japanese Empire, the British Empire, the old Russian Empire, the first German Empire. They all went through the exact same stages that America's going through now. And every one of them lasted between 200 and 300 years before they completely collapsed and ceased to exist. And so for Americans to believe that, oh, this is America, it's never going to collapse. You think the people in the Roman Empire thought the Roman Empire would ever collapse?
Yeah.
It's sad to be looked upon by the majority of Americans as somebody who is crazy and is insane, as a conspiracy theorist, because I think that America will eventually cease to exist, and we're right on the edge of that. We really are.
Yeah, everybody's talking about change. Maybe we should, take a look and make a change before it's too late. But anyway, we do have a call coming through. You cool to taking a few calls here from people?
Absolutely.
All right. We have our regular usual suspect about to call in, but we're going to keep him off just for a second. Caller from the 403 area code has been waiting a long time. Are you still with us, sir?
Yep.
And who is this?
This is Kyle from Red Deer.
Hi, Kyle. How you doing? You're on the line with Val Venis. Did you have a question for him?
Yeah, I just wanted to know a couple of things. These might be stupid questions. I just wanted to know, you ever entertained any offers from actual porn companies?
Entertain any offers from porn companies? Okay, next.
I will take that and say that this is kind of funny.
It is. It was a good one.
Yeah, exactly. We did have a sorry, Kyle, we're going to have to let you go. I will say this. We had we were both in high school. I was actually graduating high school, going into college at the time, and on the internet, I thought it was very funny when you first debuted because everybody believed it. They're like, oh, well, I saw him in the movie with Jenna Jameson.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought that was funny. And also calling in from the 847 area code, I believe it's our good friend Andres. Andres, are you with us?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going, Val?
You're on the line with Sean Morley, Val Venis.
Oh, yeah, wow. I jumped when I came in. You guys were talking about politics. Wow, it was deep.
Hey, Andre, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. I was like, I for a while I didn't even know who the caller was, and then someone said Val Venis. I'm like, oh my god, I thought it was like a political talk show.
Well, we kind of got on the side show, but you know what? You have to in this day and age. You have to be politically at least aware.
Well, cool. So can I go political then? I mean, I figure if you guys are talking about it.
I guess you have time.
Heck yeah, why not?
Okay.
Well, the funny thing, everything you guys were talking about, and you know, I was at the end of the day because I've been in a lot of systems in my life, like different worlds I've seen, and I realized that all systems are corrupt. You know, no matter what corporation or government, everything's always corrupt. You know.
Absolutely, and that's why we need true freedom and liberty, because corruption would be next to impossible to happen within an environment where true freedom and liberty exists.
Well, then the only way to ever really have true freedom is to control it. Like, you can only control your life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Change starts with you as a person, the people you affect, and hopefully through that, you know, things will change. But, you know, that's just what I think.
All right. Well, I hate to take this back to wrestling because we kind of did get off on a political tangent. I'm glad we did because obviously that's something that very much inspires you, and I hope everybody does check it. Is it freetarian.com?
Freetarian.com, absolutely.
All right. Before I let you off the line, can we hit you with a couple, basically a psychological exam? Basically hitting you with a couple word associations. You can either give a one-word answer or tell a story.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Let's go with, let's do one of the first ones is Terry Reynolds.
Terry Reynolds. Sweet and sexy.
Patrick, you want to take one?
Sure. Here's a kind of an obscure one. How about Mr. Yamaguchi?
Ooh, evil.
Now, I did want to ask you a question about that, and Patrick and I were talking about it off the air. The media made some kind of big deal about the age of Mrs. Yamaguchi. Were you aware of that, and what was the real story behind that?
I didn't hear anything about that. No, I actually got to know her fairly well over the time. She was, I guess she was going to college at the time, and then she had some medical issues, which took her out of college at the time. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, as far as the age issue, I mean, you know, I never heard anything about that. So,
well,
Sean's like, I hope not.
Yeah.
I had a name actually. How about a guy who I believe was married to your sister at one point, Adam Copeland?
Good guy. I think Adam is he's a different breed for sure. He's a guy that he's heavy into music. He really, and I mean not just the music itself, but the history of rock and roll. I mean, I remember one time we were at a gym working out, and I've never been a huge fan of music. You know, if I hear a song, there's a good chance I have absolutely no idea who performs that particular song, even if I do like it. So one time we're working out in a gym, and I hear the song come on the radio, and I want to get that song onto my iPod at the time. So I knew Adam would know, so I go running over to Adam. I said, hey, Adam, buddy, listen, who sings this song? Well, Adam got off the bench press, stood up right into my face, and didn't just tell me who sings the song. He got up and told me where the guy was born, what his first band was, what preschool he went to, what public school he went to, what his parents' names were, when his parents were born. I mean, he went into a whole biography of the singer of this particular band that sung the song, and I'm just standing there with my mouth dropped on the floor looking at him, stunned. And after about a minute of him going on about, you know, all these different aspects of this particular singer, I said, dude, I just want to know who sings it. That's it. And so, yeah, he's definitely a guy that's heavy into music. And, you know, I had a feeling. I mean, I hoped it would have worked out between my sister and Adam, but they're also too much alike. They're both very stubborn, and they butted heads. And they just couldn't get past that. Now they're friends, and they get along fairly well. So that's a good thing. And but yeah, he's definitely a good guy.
Let me ask you, what song was it? Just out of curiosity.
You know what? It was so many years ago, I can't remember. The only thing I remember is him just going, I was in shock that he just was telling me the whole life story of this singer that sung this particular song. But yeah, as far as who it was, I mean, I completely forgot.
All right. Patrick, you want to start taking her home?
I'm sorry, what was that, James?
You want to start taking her home?
Sure. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on the show with us. I found this very entertaining, very good interview.
Well, thanks, man, and I appreciate you guys having me on here, and hopefully we can do something again in the near future.
We'd love to have you on. I do have to ask you, based on your political views, based on the fact that you've been in wrestling for as long as you have, and the fact that you're very well in tune with the media, I'd be remiss not to ask this question. We've been going hot and cold on if we should ask it or not. One of the things that wrestling right now is still recovering from, and probably is now starting to finally really recover from, is the travesties that happened at the end of June in 2007 with the Chris Benoit tragedy.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, for a while there, it was a case where we left the house, and if you were wearing a wrestling T-shirt, they kind of lumped you in with all that whole mess. And Lance Cade made a comment to me that he felt like when he walked into the supermarket, people were looking at him thinking, "Oh, there's the guy that's going to kill his family." He said it got really bad for a short time. You personally, being a wrestler, being politically connected as you are, what did you personally think of the way the media did what the media does and hyped the crap out of the Benoit travesty?
It's funny you asked that question. It was because I already had a severe distrust of mainstream media at that time. Over a period of years, being a huge fan of Fox News, for example, at one point. It was everything O'Reilly said, everything Sean Hannity said, I was standing behind. It wasn't until I started looking deeper into the issues and studying true freedom and liberty that I started to question what these guys were saying. And it wasn't just them. It was also the liberals as well, like Alan Combs, for example. I started questioning what he was saying as well. And what really shed light on how corrupt and how evil mainstream media can be was the entire Chris Benoit tragedy. I was good friends with Chris, and what he did was absolutely evil. Here's a guy that I looked up to. I think almost everyone looked up to Chris Benoit. I mean, he was a phenomenal worker. He's definitely categorized as one of the greatest performers in the world when it comes to professional wrestling. He was intense. He was passionate. I think that whatever happened that night, I truly believe he did not mean to kill Nancy. I think they may have gotten into a huge argument, and with all the evidence, there was no bruises on her or anything like that. All that was wrong with her was her windpipe was crushed. So I think there was empty beer bottles and wine bottles everywhere. So when you add up these facts and you look at the amount of time that had expired between the death of Nancy and the death of his son, the evidence all adds up to they were drunk and they got into a massive fight. I think Nancy started, wailing away or whatever, and I think he wrapped his arm around her neck and started to squeeze. Now, mind you, they're both really intense and they're both really drunk, and I think she ended up passing out. I think he let go. And when she didn't come to, I think he started to freak out and he started to become unglued. In this whole, the reason I'm saying what I believe to happen is important as it pertains to the media, because when you look at the evidence, and it's fairly obvious that this is probably what happened. And there was so much time after Nancy passed away. Then he sedates his son the next day and then chokes out his son as well, which is just, it's just a horrible travesty. Even if it was an accidental death on Nancy, to me, as passionate, as intense as Chris Benoit was, you got to admit it was quite cowardly that he could not, keep his son alive and face the music for what he had done. And but that said, when you look at the evidence and then you look at what media, especially Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, how they were portraying the events as, it's roid rage and he went ballistic. Well, if he went ballistic, there would be bruises on Nancy. There would be probably cuts from punches and kicks and things like that, but there was none of that. He wouldn't have waited a whole day and a half to sedate his son and kill him. He would have had roid rage and just, as soon as he killed Nancy, gone after his own son as well. But they continued to push the idea of roid rage, even though there was evidence contrary to roid rage, and they rarely ever mentioned the massive amount of empty alcohol bottles, whether it be beer cans or wine bottles, that were laying around everywhere. I mean, they were obviously quite drunk at the time. And but you look at media, and I watch Fox News continually to push the roid rage aspect of the story. That is what really set me back and made me really distrust mainstream media at that point in time. You know, it was they just continued to run with the story, even though the facts were completely contrary to what their story was.
Absolutely, and I wanted to quote two things at you, and I'm sure Patrick, he's the one who brought me abreast of this one. Apparently, Bill O'Reilly was talking to somebody, and he was talking to the owner of the false AWA, which should show you, based on the credibility of that guest, you know, just what they knew. Anyway, he was talking to him about it, and he made the reference of Chris Benoit was obviously a sociopath because he broke Sabu's neck. And it's like, well, that was clearly an accident. And then the other one was the genius Lanny Poffo was doing an interview with Sean Hannity. And he was talking about steroids, and anything he said, you know, Hannity was shooting down. And at one point, Hannity said, shot back at him this line, and it stuck with me for the past 3 years, or 2.5 years, or whatever it's been. Just over 2 years, actually. He said, come on, admit it. Admit that you guys take steroids because it helps you win your matches.
Wow.
Yeah, I just was like,
wow.
Wow. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's that whole you really shed a whole new light on mainstream media, and that's when, for the first time in my entire life, that I really understood what mainstream media was all about. And now, any story I hear from mainstream media, I do not trust at all. I'll go and do my own research, and the majority of the time when I do my own research on stories that I'm interested in, I find something completely contrary to what mainstream media is pushing.
Yep, I mean, there was a story here in Phoenix. I won't get into it, but if you have the opportunity, read Sunday's newspaper. There's a story about I want to say it's from Libya, a family from Libya that came here, about a girl that got raped from Libya. And the media was doing what the media does, and they blamed America first with it all. They said that, you know, this girl came to America and got raped. They don't mention the fact that it was their neighbors that raped her, and that they were also refugees from Libya as well. So, I mean, this is just, you gotta take these stories, you gotta take everything with a grain of salt, you gotta read into it, and you gotta, somewhere between the bullshit lies the truth, I guess.
Absolutely. I gotta agree with you 100% on that one.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we've kept you long enough, but we can't thank you enough for stopping by with us, and if there's ever anything else we could do for you, please be in contact, and anybody interested in booking Val Venis can do so, serious inquiries only, through www.wrestlebookings.com. And Val, we can't thank you enough for taking it, Sean, I should call you, sorry.
Either one, I go by either one.
All right, thanks so much for spending this time with us, man.
Thanks, guys, I appreciate it, man.
All right.
Sean, have a good...
All right, you guys too now, take care.
All right, guys, we're going to go to commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the title change that happened at One Night Stand, and I'm sure Eric Clancy is about to blow a gasket. Night of Champions, sorry. Night of Champions, and Eric Clancy is going to blow a gasket. So stay tuned for that. Just a few moments here on the Interactive Interview on WrestlingEpicenter.com.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, rush.
Featuring the Interactive Interview.
Interactive Interview. Interactive Interview. Interactive Interview. Interactive Interview. Interactive Interview. Interactive Interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when a Blaze of Maniacs runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Arriba la raza.
Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, guys. We had a lovely conversation. First lady. Absolutely. Oh, look at me. She's so kooky. Hi. Be there. Where else? Interactive Wrestling Radio. Wrestling Epicenter. Oh, my God. You win. Wow. Being interactive.
Wow.
I just got some noise.
I was gonna shoot him.
Yeah, I almost missed my pants. Breaking neck.
I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Let's go. Excuse my language. Getting over the shot. I see him now. We're into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's gonna be cool. Woo! What it's all about. The purest point of view.
The living legend.
Arrogant.
You're listening to me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
So lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview.
I'm not just the best.
Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates chaos. Professional wrestling.
Made in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire. I'm not
We were sexy.
What a show.
The one and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You gotta recognize who's the best.
Make sure to tune in each and every week.
I'll come out of your computer.
Knock down your door and turn it on for you.
Or else I'm gonna kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day. It's showtime.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.